Hi, and welcome to the video of the first leg of our Spanish road trip. On this trip we'll visit 16 locations, staying overnight in 9 of them. Each overnight destination will have its own dedicated video, and the connecting legs, hopefully showing backroad Spain, will detail the journey, like this one, which will take us from Bilbao to Zaragoza via Pamplona. So strap in and let's hit the road. And I'm going to start as we depart the ferry. Now, this is not the most scenic part of the trip. However, I want to give you as much information as possible. We arrived on the Brittany Ferries Galicia, which docked around 7 AM UK time. The ship operates on UK time. After disembarking and clearing customs, we're on the road around 8:45 Spanish time or Central European time. Today is a Saturday in mid-September and the temperature outside is around 18 degrees centigrade, that's 65 Fahrenheit. By the end of the day, some 220 miles or 355 kilometres down the road, it will be in the late 20s or low 80s Fahrenheit. And we'll be returning here some 19 days later. The centre of Bilbao is around 10 miles away as the crow flies, and if you haven't visited then we'd highly recommend it. It was the start of our 2016 Spanish road trip and we loved it. Brittany Ferries also sails into Santander, which is another great city, and the ferry docks right in the heart of town. I'll drop a link in the description to the Brittany Ferries website, as with every important point of interest I mention, so you can check out what may work for you. To help with the flow of action, I will speed up the footage from time to time. I hope you're okay with that. I really want to show you as much of backroad Spain as I can, but sometimes I have to use the Autovias or A roads. These are the fastest roads, normally with a speed limit of 120 km per hour, which is around 75 miles per hour. There are AP roads or Autovia Plazas, and these are toll roads, and leaving Bilbao we're heading out on the AP8. You may notice that some road signs are bilingual, Basque and Spanish. That's because we're in Basque country. As I said, we plan to get off the motorways as soon as we can and head across the country to see a little bit more of the real Spain. We've a book on our bookshelves, Backroad Spain, part of the DK Eyewitness Travel series which we reference. It has 23 mainland Spanish routes, and one of them touches on the Basque Navarre region and covering Pamplona. However, it really doesn't match what we want to achieve on this route, so we're relying on our own navigation. And a word about planning. We started off with a blank map, a map on the Google My Maps app. We have one point on that map, Janice's brother's holiday home in Mahaka, which is one reason we're undertaking this trip. Then we start to plan out the other destinations we would like to visit. We have a list from our blog, Our World for You, of places we have already visited in the north, central and southern Spain. This includes places we would like to visit in future, so that gives us our first destination, Zaragoza. It also provides the stopover, Pamplona. Then, based on several factors, like how long we want to be on the road for, when we want to head out, and when we want to arrive, we pick the other destinations. Those variables will be different for all of us, so if you're planning your trip, take that into account. There's a link to our My Map in the description if you want to check it out. With regards to driving in Spain, I find it really easy. As you can see on this stretch of motorway on a Saturday morning, it's relatively quiet. In the main, everything is very well signposted, and I check either the AA or RAC websites for the requirements for driving in Spain, as the last time I drove here was in 2018. As you can see, this route has made light of the mountains. How many tunnels have we passed through? But it's now time to pay the toll. And the cost? €1.50. As we pass through another tunnel, our aim is to leave the AP8 and pick up the N635 as we head towards Pamplona. On the road we're using a mix of our Audi's 10-year-old built-in sat-nav system and Janice assisting with Waze. Waze provides us with a much more dynamic view of the route and is bang up to date. We could have used the routing function of Google Maps or even ABRP. That's the A Better Route Planner app. whatever option we choose, there's sure to be words at some point. Anyway, we have chosen this junction to pick up that en route. Backroad Spain, here we come. Now, I've deliberately left this section in. It may not be picturesque or quaint, but this is real Spain, and this is what we wanted. We'll take a quick look before jumping onto the open road. The N635 is going to mirror the AP8 for a while, and so will we until we locate the next road, the N240. If truth be told, I could have stayed on the AP8 for a couple more junctions and picked up the N240 directly. One of many little hiccups along the way which may help you if you're planning your own road trip. And here's another one. I want the turning on the right. Nope, the second turning on the right. This road layout is very common in Spain to allow the safe turning left on busier roads. I'm sure that won't be the last little mistake. However, don't beat yourself up too much. You're going to expect a few on a long journey like this. Anyway, back to the route, and we're now on the N240 heading south. Don't worry about the landscape, it will improve, and at times I'll be quiet and let you enjoy it, but not just yet. As we headed out of the urban areas, and I was surprised how urban it was, something became apparent. As in the UK, there is a requirement to give cyclists plenty of room. I believe it's around 1.5 metres, and the Spanish are very good at adhering to that, making the roads safer for cyclists. Now, a word about planning this trip in late 2023 if you're driving an EV. We're planning to transition early next year, and I have limited experience from an extended test drive of a Polestar 2, but I also have hours of research on the subject, so I wanted to comment. There seems to be a lack of rapid chargers en route in Spain. The focus seems to be the lower powered destination chargers in the larger towns and cities. So for the time being, you will have to factor that in when planning your trip. If you're an EV owner in Spain or you've undertaken a road trip in an EV, I'd love to understand your experiences. I would love to have met the family of three who boarded our Brittany ferry in the Hyundai Ioniq 5 at Portsmouth to understand their experience. Anyway, enough of that. As you can see, the landscape has opened up, and this is more of what I was expecting from northern Spain. So while you enjoy this, I'll be quiet and leave you to soak it in. Okay, so you didn't expect me to stay quiet for too long, did you? So we're continuing south on the N230 and we need to head east to pick up Pamplona. We'd like to get there around about 12, spend 2 to 3 hours there, and then head across country to Zaragoza. Leaving the ferry so early this morning, we skipped breakfast. It was an option on board, but we have a couple of cereal bars to keep us going and aim to have lunch in Pamplona. Now back to the route. And magically the N240 turns from a single carriageway into a dual carriageway. It appears to have moved into an A road in all but name. Oh, and speed limit. It's 100 km per hour. Now it's time to leave the N240 to pick up the A1 to head east. I'd like to take a more scenic route, but we want to make sure we have enough time in Pamplona. Part of our planning for this leg of the route was to select our car parking in Pamplona. We want to head to the centre of town, and luckily there is a car park under the Bullring. We hope that on a Saturday, approaching lunchtime, that's not a problem, but for now we're heading towards the Plaza del Toros. If not, we do have a plan B. As I walk you through some more planning tips, just keep an eye out for the changing weather patterns. You'll be considering how many nights you stay in a destination. Again, this is different for all of us. Apart from Mahaka, we are staying a maximum of 2 nights in 5 destinations and overnight in 3. So the places we only have 1 night, we need to arrive early enough to explore, because the next morning we're going to be on the road at a reasonable time. On this trip we're revisiting Granada and Toledo because we didn't allocate enough time on our 2014 trip. On the 2016 trip we spent a few hours in Burgos for lunch. This time we'll stop there before our return to Bilbao. On this route the A1 became the A10. We're now heading onto the A15, which means we'll have another toll to pay. We're now just 8 miles from our destination and we arrive at the toll gate, and it's time to play fastest lane first. We lost. The cost for this section was €2.45. Now as we experience the run into the city, I'll be quiet until we get to the Plaza de Toro. Then we can take a look at Pamplona. There's the Bullring, so we must be here. That wasn't too bad now, was it? As I mentioned EVs earlier, I really should point out that in this car park there were 2 Type 2 chargers, both available. Anyway, let's now take a look around Pamplona, and we'll obviously start with the Bullring. It's quite imposing, rebuilt in 1923, and it seats over 19,000 people. It's the second largest Bullring in Spain after Madrid. To the outsider, Pamplona is most associated with the San Fermin festival, which includes the running of the bulls. Ernest Hemingway made the festival famous in his 1926 novel The Sun Also Rises. When I think of the running of the bulls, I always think of the opening scene of City Slickers. Sheer madness. But of course Pamplona is so much more than that one festival, as we will discover. This is the Palace of Navarre, because we're now in the Navarre region, which borders Basque to the northwest, Aragon to the southeast. To the southwest we have La Rioja, and to the northeast the Pyrenees and France. And we've made our way to the main tourist square of Plaza del Castilo, surrounded by eye-catching 18th century buildings. This tree-lined square with its impressive bandstand is surrounded by little market huts, and it seems rather popular on this Saturday morning. As well as the market, there are plenty of restaurants lining the square to keep you fed and watered. But as tempting as that may seem, we have a city to discover before we treat ourselves. This is a great city to explore on foot. We know we're only doing the whistle-stop version, but we may be back at a later date. As you stroll these ancient streets, you may come across a Pellegrino or pilgrim. Pamplona is the first major city on the Camino de Santiago, or the Way of St. James. If the pilgrims are following the traditional route from the French town of Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port across the other side of the Pyrenees, they would walk around about 45 miles to Pamplona, with just 450 plus miles to their destination at the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela. I say the traditional route, there are many, some starting much further afield. If you're interested, one of our favourite films is The Way, in part written by, directed and featuring Emilio Estevez, along with his father Martin Sheen. It's well worth a watch. The pilgrims will probably be making their way to Pamplona's cathedral, which we'll take a look at now. The first thing that strikes you is the neoclassical facade, which was designed in the late 18th century. You don't need to be particularly religious to appreciate the beauty of a church or cathedral, but we are always conscious of those for whom this is a place of worship. There is a small fee for tourists, around €5 an adult, but there are various concessions. For Pellegrinos it's €3. There are many things that will catch your eye, not least the tomb of Charles III of Navarre and his wife Eleanor of Castile. As you wander around taking in all the finery of the cathedral, it's worth remembering that this is the work of centuries. The cathedral's construction began in the 13th century on the site of an earlier Romanesque church, but it wasn't completed until the 16th century. The decoration in each individual chapel is truly amazing, and as you wander through you are captivated by the work of craftspeople of past centuries. In some ways this reminds me of our visit to Flanders and the amazing works within the churches and cathedrals there. And then we come across the cathedral organ. Always a pleasure for me to hear the organist practicing, but sadly not today. We then take a look at the high altar. As I said, this is a place of great beauty. With a step into the cloisters, I'm slightly baffled. As we approached along Calle Curia, the cathedral seemed small. Sure, the facade was grand, but the cathedral seemed hemmed in. But as we explore it, it proves me totally wrong. As we continue to look around, I'll leave you in peace for a short while. Stepping inside, we see a scale model of the cathedral, and it's impressive. But now it's time to head out, and it's a relatively short 5-minute walk to the city's town hall. This is iconic. It dates from 1423, although it was rebuilt in 1951. It's where the Supinasso is launched every 6th of July to announce the start of San Fermin. As we have looped back to the running of the bulls, we may as well stroll down Calle Estafeta. This is the same route that those charging bulls will take on their way back to the Bullring. On a typical Saturday, it's rather hard to believe. We're going to make our way over to Plaza de Castilo for that promise of lunch. We'll take a look at Cafe Uruna, said to be a favourite haunt of one Ernest Hemingway. We might as well take a look inside too, and its impressive interior. Uruna is the Basque name for Pamplona, just for the record. But we'll step outside and find somewhere else to grab our pinchos. Small bites, normally pinned, similar to tapas of the south and central Spain. And for me, it's cerveza sin alcohol to go with my pinchos. You don't want to watch us eat, so let's take a look at the Running of the Bulls monument. It's a wonderful piece of artwork. Directly in front of us you can spot the red doors of the Bullring. It was originally created in 1994, but extended in 2007 to give us a total of 19 figures. This is the final stop on our brief visit to Pamplona, and our first little bite of Spain. Now back to the car. I hope you agree Pamplona is a lovely little city, and I bet it really comes to life at night. If you'd like to check out accommodation in Pamplona, then I'll add our booking.com link. If you book, we make a little commission, but it doesn't cost you any more. I will show you a little of the city as we head out. Remember, this is Saturday and it's around 2 p.m. I hope this gives the impression of how easy it is to drive in Spain. Sure, some of the larger cities can become painful. You wait until we get to Granada, but that's another story. We're heading out south again, and where possible we're keeping off the Autovias. We aim to pick up the N121, but that means we need to briefly pick up the A21 AP15. As I mentioned earlier, navigating in Spain is a doddle. Everything is clearly signposted. All we need to do is remember the road number and the direction we want to head into. Now look to the left. Here we have the Acueducto de Noáin, built in the late 18th century, 1 kilometre long with 96 arches. This is why we explore backroad Spain. We're on the N121 now, and hopefully you'll get a taste of the landscape we pass through. And if you've made it this far, I do hope you're enjoying our little video. If you are, please give us a like, it really does make a difference. If you want more, then don't forget to hit subscribe and click on that notification bell so you don't miss out. With the N121 appearing to merge with the AP15, we have decided to keep to the more minor N roads. We hope that works out. Despite having a plan, you need to go with the flow sometimes. Then something a little interesting. We and the other traffic on the road are being flashed by oncoming traffic. I think this is the international sign for police up ahead. And sure it is. I feel safe. I have my UK sticker, 2 warning triangles, spare glasses, high-vis jackets. Oh, just wait through. We're approaching the town of Tafalla and soon pass by the Townhall at its centre. I love these places, the real Spain. Away from the tourist hotspots, it's just a joy to soak it all up. I'd love to stop, but we're aiming to be at Zaragoza by 4 PM and we're pretty much on track. If we hadn't taken that little detour off the N121, we would have missed this. As we head out the far side of Tafalla, we rejoin the N121. The more I head through this part of Spain, the more I understand that this road trip in an EV would be a real challenge. Now, I don't want to put you off. We will get an EV in 2024, but for the short term, more planning will be required. Now, like you, I watch YouTube videos, and a channel I recently discovered was Andrew Till, Mr. EV. He's UK based, relatively close to us in Kent, and he has some real world practical experience with some decent Euro road trips. Well worth checking out. I'll pop a link to his channel at the end of this. As you can see, even in this first leg of our road trip, we have travelled through different landscapes, and it's not long before we come across a wind farm. These are not the windmills of Miguel de Cervantes' hero Don Quixote. We'll have to wait until we close in on Toledo for those. Now, a word about speed limits. On N roads, we're generally restricted to 90 km per hour, and it reduces around some junctions. As I'm in a relaxed mode, I have the adaptive cruise set for that, and Janice is tracking the speed with Waze. In Spain, like I guess many places, that is probably viewed as more advisory. Once again, I'll give you a little peace and quiet until we turn off. I know we haven't turned off yet, but the road has now changed from the N121 to the N113. I noticed this happen a few times on our trip. Road numbers changed even though you haven't deviated from your route. Our next turn will be for the N232 and we will be heading southeast towards Zaragoza. We'll only be on here for a mile or so until it's upgraded to the A68. Running parallel with us will be the AP68. We'll remain on this for around about 50 miles or so until we reach the outskirts of Zaragoza, and we need to remain alert. It's probably obvious why I prefer the slower route where I can, but to cover the 1,600 miles or 2,600 kilometres distance sometimes needs must. There's nothing wrong with Spain's motorway network, but it doesn't inspire me. We're keeping to the right to stay on the A68, all very simple. But then a little surprise. That's great for day one. Anyway, I guess I should have mentioned we've entered the Aragon region of Spain, and we're closing in on the outskirts of Zaragoza. Back home, in preparation for the arrival at our hotel, we took a look at Street View to familiarise ourselves with the approach. The hotel's underground car park is on a side street and we're on the edge of the old town. We've set the destination in the sat-nav for the car park, not the hotel, so let's see how we get on. I have to say the approach has been really straightforward, big wide roads and there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of traffic. I'm slightly surprised as we're just 2 miles from the hotel, and I know as we close in it will become a little bit more interesting. now more focused on Janice's directions and ways, because it's much more up to date and road layouts may have changed. I want to avoid unpleasant surprises where I inadvertently creep into a bus lane or a restricted area. This would be a good example, but I want to turn right. As we close into the hotel, it becomes more and more interesting, and I wonder how much of this we will explore, how much of this will make it onto our next video, which will be our visit to Zaragoza. It looks pretty good so far. So as we close in on the hotel car park, it just leaves me to say thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and happy travels.